Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. And it's Sunday, a beautiful Sunday. I hope you're all having an amazing, amazing day and had a beautiful weekend because I think it's just nice to have weekends. I must say, I have the odd weekend where I have the whole weekend off. Usually I work, but I create, so it's not even exhausting. So I love weekends. Happy weekend. I hope you're all well. And I am so delighted to say a great big hello and a welcome to my guest today, this beautiful lady, ANDI Bond, who's joining me here on Aquarius Rising Africa. Welcome, ANDI, and thank you so much. I am so happy to be connecting with you because, and I must say, I'm so grateful for you reaching out the other day on email after we did the show with Jessie on the stuff on non-judgment, I think was the topic that we ended up being on. But that was a pretty powerful show. I had a lot of emails from people after that, which was brilliant. And you're stuck out there because I'd seen you'd been on an interview with Carmen Studer a few days before that, and I'd still saved your video in Watch Later because I hadn't actually had time to watch it yet. And your name was just, I remembered your name very well. And so when I saw it on email, I went, what is that her? And when I saw your email, it was really, really cool because from our off-air chats, we share some wonderful commonalities, which we're going to be delving into a little bit later. But I am just, again, so privileged that you are willing and comfortable to share with us your journey as well. But enough babbling from me for now. So I'm going to go over to you and just welcome you and say thank you so, so much again for joining us.
Well, thank you, Chantelle. You know, as we've discussed, I'm very honored. I'm very honored. And I've been watching all of your interviews for a long time. And so, yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. And I'm very excited about some of the work that we're going to be doing together. So God bless you. Thank you.
And right back to you. Now, sadly, you are also one of these beautiful, powerful, and amazingly expanded spirits, as I like to call it. You really do have a beautiful energy and presence about you, inside and out. And you've unfortunately also lived through some of the horrors of SRA, call it child transportation. And I know from some of our off-air chats, you from the Cherokee tribe, which is one of Earth's original people. And I have to say, before I hand over to you again, I was so beautifully happy again when we connected on this, because a week ago we had a show also it was with Ruth Shillingsworth, who's one of the original people from Australia, son of one of the elders, and Rasul Sneeman of South Africa, who's a direct descendant of the Khoisan, and all part of Earth's original tribes. And then I connected with you as part of the Cherokee tribe, also part of Earth's original tribes. And I'm just overjoyed to see how many of the beautiful original people are just sprouting up, bringing back the message of what we need to go back to, yet in modern times. I'm not saying we've got to go back to mud huts and what have you, but modern times as well, you know, so integrating that in our modern day society. So for an abundance of reasons, I'm so grateful to have you cross my path and me cross yours, and that we didn't bump heads, but rather embraced. And I would love to hand over to you and just tell us about your journey as much as what you'd like to share with us. I'd love to hear about your story.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for the work that you're doing to bring back, you know, the teachings and reunite some of the elders from the tribes across the globe. Really, one of my dreams for years has been to do exactly that. And I've worked with elders from different tribes, but I am my grandmother was Cherokee. And I've spent a lot of time throughout my life learning about the ancient Cherokee teachings and the knowledge, and it's really sacred and it's really beautiful. A lot of that was lost, you know, when the Trail of Tears happened, and my great grandparents were part of that, unfortunately. And so I've been going back and learning about a lot of what happened with that, and the other elders that I let's say I have 1 degree of separation. There's a man that I came into contact with a couple of years ago in Colorado who has a direct connection to the Hopi elders as well. And he and I have spoken about a dream to bring the Hopi elders, the Cherokee elders, and elders from other tribes here, but also from across the globe together. And in my studies and in my travels across India, Thailand, Bali, the United States as well, I've done a lot of work with the very ancient sacred knowledge. And I find that a lot of the tribes across the globe actually have the same knowledge, but they use different terminology for it. But it's all really based on really beautiful, sacred science, really sacred science. So yeah, I've done a lot of work also with a couple of lineages from India that share very similar knowledge. And so it's my honor to start to hopefully bring some of that knowledge that's been taken and hidden from humanity, because it's very beautiful and it's very empowering, and it's very, let's say, harmonious with the laws of God and the laws of nature. And yeah, where would you like me to start with my story? Basically,
well, you know, just what you're talking about, I have to say I can speak about forever, because I'm so very into those original laws of nature. And, you know, as the Aboriginal people are calling it, it's not LAW, that's man-made law, it's LORE, you know, the laws of nature, which is really going back to the ancient way of doing things and living in harmony with the earth and not raping and pillaging. Anyway, that's definitely we will be speaking more of in the future. But right now, I would love to hear about how did it begin for you as a child in this life, and how were you? How did you get into the trafficking, SRA? Were you born into it? Now I can imagine with your bloodlines again, because what we've learned over the past 2 years for sure is how the original people are specifically targeted because of the strong spiritual gifts that you guys have, you know. And I know you guys are particularly psychic, the Cherokee people, and have a particularly strong connection to the earth. It's like you belong to the earth or to the land does not belong to you. It's that type of feeling, most definitely. So I would love to know how it happened for you, your journey, and what took you to this beautiful place where you are now, because, wow, another beautiful soul who's come out of hell and thriving.
Thank you. Well, I can start with the reasons that I discovered that I was targeted for SRA and military programs specifically. I was born in Vail, Colorado, which is one of the, let's say, I was born in Vail. I went to elementary school in a town called Eagle, Colorado, and then middle school and high school in a town called Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And Vail and Aspen are two of the places in Colorado where there are a lot of elite families that own property and live there, you know, portions of the year, as you know, they spend a lot of time there. Aspen in particular is one of the strongholds, I'll call, of the Rothschild family. And to the point where you walk in the Aspen airport and there's an entire dedication of, you know, honoring the Rothschild family. So also a lot of politicians, a lot of Hollywood people have homes there, vacation there, spend a lot of the time there. So I was sort of unknowingly growing up right in the belly of the beast. And the way that the community that I grew up in worked really was, you know, you had the elite families up there with all the money and the mansions and stuff. And then you had the more local people and kids, you know, local families that would live more, you know, kind of down the road and cater to those families. And then we had a lot of tourists kind of coming in and out of the valley to the ski areas constantly. The way that I was targeted, I discovered, was number one, because of my bloodlines or my DNA. I understand that that's all taken from birth. And the more I discovered, you know, it's known if you, just from birth, if you have certain bloodlines, certain blood types. And I understand that the Cherokee is specifically targeted because a couple of people have brought out to me, one of them being Cisco Wheeler, that the Cherokee tribe goes all the way back to either Lemuria or Sumeria. So it's one of the ancient, you know, one of the original 13 tribes or 12 tribes. And so, like you said, there do tend to be what appear to be natural inborn spiritual gifts with the Cherokee people. And the Cherokee people have been targeted for a long time for government experimentation. My grandmother was one of them. And so that's one piece of the puzzle. I did discover that my grandmother on my mom's side was a survivor of trafficking. And then she went into modeling. She became a model. And I believe she may have been trafficked through that as well. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. When it comes down to the different blood types, this is something else that I discovered, that certain blood types are specifically targeted. And just like different, you know, horses or dogs, there's different breeds, and the different breeds have different specialties or different abilities. Certain horses are good race horses, and certain horses are good for, you know, working cattle or things like that. People also have different inborn innate gifts, and those are very specific to the different blood types. So from what I understand, one of the main blood types that's targeted is AB negative, and then there's A negative, and those two specifically are very, very, very highly specialized for some of the government programs, including SRA. And the SRA does it, you know, it crosses over with the military programs as well. So that was a big piece of the puzzle. The other reasons that I could figure out, one of the big things was I was targeted because of standardized testing. I was put into the gifted and talented programs, you know, from a very young age. And that's where a lot of the abuse happened, was through those gifted and talented programs. You know, that they test IQ, they test all sorts of different things. Those tests are used for other things, but one of the purposes is that they are a finder they're a finder. They're looking for kids with certain abilities, certain talents, certain, you know, inborn gifts, and that's how I was found. The other piece of the puzzle is that there was a really out in the open and strong influence on the public schools, and the organizations in that area were run by Masons. You know, the elementary school that I went to was dedicated by Freemasons, and you know, the symbols and everything are right there out in the open. And I was targeted that way as well. So the other thing that I've been really looking into is there seems to be some sort of connection to ski areas, ski resorts across the globe.
Surprised. Gosh, I can imagine with you know, with all that wealth there. As you said, I think it's Aspen that is very connected with the Rothschilds. I mean, anyone that has anything to do with any ski resorts, or, you know, you're talking big money there. So it would make a lot of sense that they would be connected, you know, using that as their, are they using that as trafficking hubs too?
I don't know. I don't fully understand that piece, but there were rituals done in houses close by ski areas. And one of the houses that I remember had an elevator in it. So, you know, I don't know, but it is very interesting if you start to look across the planet, how many ski areas are connected to these areas where the elite families, you know, work together or live. And so I don't fully comprehend that piece of the puzzle. But when I was a young child, my mom was a ski instructor at Beaver Creek, one of the first. And, you know, I went to ski school rather than daycare. And there were some nefarious things that went down right around Beaver Creek, Colorado, in at least one of the homes there, right by the ski area. Wow. And I believe that is true, although I wasn't involved, but I can imagine that it happens in Aspen, Colorado as well. So
I would imagine those must be hot spots now that we think about it again. You know, it's not something that I've stretched my mind to, but as we're speaking about it, it all just clicks in. Now, you said earlier on that your grandmother, and I think you said your mum, if I remember correctly, were both trafficked, right? So were you?
My grandmother was, for sure, although my mother, she displays a lot of PTSD symptoms and has no memory before the age of 9, which is not a normal thing. And so I suspect that my mother and my aunts and uncles, at least a few of them, may have been abused through the Catholic church that they grew up in. My mom was in Catholic school, went to Catholic high school in St. Louis, Missouri. And my grandfather was in the Navy. He was recruited in his 20s after he had graduated from college for his intelligence. And he joined the Navy as a lieutenant. And I've done a lot of research to look into his records, and they were sealed. When I went to go look into them, it said they were sealed for 62 years or something like that. And so I don't know how my grandfather was connected, although I do understand that it's possible that at that time he may have given actual permission for genetic studies, quote unquote, to be done on his children and grandchildren, which that's a possibility. But my grandfather was the one that married my grandmother, who was the native Cherokee.
Okay, there's two questions I have here. Firstly, what nationality was he if he wasn't Cherokee? So if he, and then secondly, why would someone's records be sealed? What would the reason for that happening be?
Well, my suspicion is that he was involved in, he was military intelligence.
Okay,
That's
makes sense. Yeah.
So when I went back and I tried to discover more about that, I actually had a conversation with Gene Decode about it. And he said that, yeah, usually that is an indicator of military intelligence, and that you need to ask for specific FISA requests kind of over and over and over and over. And it's difficult to figure out exactly how to do that unless you have someone that understands how to operate through that system. So I still haven't been able to get access to his records. But yeah, the military intelligence is what I suspect. And then as far as why I was singled out, another reason that I believe I was singled out, especially in the family, although I may have, I don't know if any other cousins or anything were involved, but I am the eldest of the eldest. So my mother was the eldest daughter, and then I'm the eldest. So I do believe there is something with that, you know. And my main handler that I've come to understand as a handler was my elementary school music teacher. Another reason I was...
Just to be clear, sorry, it wasn't your parents then that took you into the system, although that your mum and you suspect your mum and your grandmother were trafficked, but it wasn't your mum and dad that took you in. And just, and sorry, I just have a question. Where's your father in all of this? Is he even aware? What was his background in all of this? Was he also a victim of trafficking or mind control?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
My dad had a falling out with his father at a young age. And the more that I've gone back and researched that, I believe that my grandfather on my dad's side may have been a Mason, and my dad rebelled against it. He left Minnesota, where he grew up, and went out to Colorado. My dad was a Christian, very, very incredible man, very brilliant. He was an electrical contractor, and he worked, which is another way that they may have, you know, some of these elite families may have, I don't know, targeted me because, you know, he worked on building their homes for them. I don't know, but he was a very, very good man, very hardworking man, very supportive. He passed away when I was 19 years old. And so, you know, that's what happened with my dad. But he, you know, he was a very hardworking person, and was just, he never abused, he wouldn't even say a harsh word to myself or my sister. We had a lot of love in my family. And the main person that was abusing me was the elementary school music teacher, who, when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, actually moved next door to us and would take us to school every day and, you know, pick us up from school. And so it was very easy for him to have access to me and my sister. And, you know, at that time, no one would ever suspect an elementary school music teacher. You know, he thought that was...
Was he actually taking you into the cult side of things when he took you in, or was it just
Yes.
great? So he actually took you in. Can you explain to us what that was like?
Yeah, he was actually involved in all of it. He was involved in all of it. That teacher is a Mormon, and I suspect also a Mason. This is my puppy. And it's very interesting. I've shared my story, and a lot of survivors have come forward telling me that they have very similar experiences, especially with the music teacher. And I've come to understand that children that are gifted musically are also a big target, because it has to do with musical abilities, being able to communicate in the spiritual realm, using your voice. And I was always picked for the lead, in the school play. The school plays were Disney musicals. The other children that were involved with rituals that I remember were also chosen for leads in the plays in Disney school musicals. And when you kind of put all those pieces together, it made me realize that those are almost like mini versions of Hollywood happening in, every town, every city. And I do believe that there is something to that piece of the equation as well, that the children that were targeted for rituals were the ones that were probably highlighted in the school plays.
How would you, sorry to interrupt you, ANDI, but how would you have been, why would the reason, if your parents weren't involved? I'm just quite fascinated by this, because usually it's the parents that are involved when the kids are that young. From what I've been hearing, that bring them in, and I would have imagined part of the reason is that the parents have more control in keeping them quiet. So how come the music teacher was the one that was targeting you? And how did you manage to keep that away and quiet from your parents?
Well, one of the things that I know for sure is that when I was younger, I do believe I tried to tell my parents, but when I would explain certain things, I was very quickly, they were very quickly, what's the word? Gaslit. I would start to say things and the teacher would be like, oh, no, that was a movie that we watched today. Oh, she's talking about a movie, blah, 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 blah. Because I have found over and over that when children try to explain these things, there is a teacher or an administrator or something in the school system that is involved in the cult. They're very good at covering that up. Also, I was threatened that if I spoke out, my parents and my sister would be killed. So, but the thing is that when I was young, I do believe I tried to speak out, and I was either not listened to, or the teachers would, whoever was involved locally in the community would cover it up. There was a teacher involved, there was a dentist involved, also a doctor, a local doctor, as well as other high-ranking elite people that lived in the area. And the other piece of the puzzle is that I do believe that they will target families where there's trauma going on. My mom at that time was suffering from alcoholism. And so,
Made it easy.
Yeah, it makes it easier. And I've seen that even with some of the survivors that I've been working with. They will target single moms, or they'll target because it's just a lot easier with, if there's any sort of emotional trauma or any sort of thing going on in the household, it's a lot easier to get access to those kids and to cover it up. Also, you know, just part of the experience of being subjected to severe trauma is that one of the ways that your body or your mind or your spirit deals with it, copes with it, is disassociation from the event. You know, I experienced it. I didn't know what it was, but I experienced it as wanting to jump out of my body. You know, I didn't want to be in my body because there was too much pain. And so I would just kind of go into another place in my mind, basically. And so I wasn't able to put together all of the pieces of the puzzle until I was in my 30s. You know, although when I was younger, I had all of the signs and symptoms of major abuse, my parents did, I think it was, there's no way they would have ever figured out exactly what it was, because who would think that that's what it was? You know, they trusted the teacher. They're going to trust their kids. They obviously trusted this teacher to keep us safe. And he was the one that picked us up from school and you know, dropped us off. And so it's they're very good at keeping people quiet, you know, through in a number of different ways. Also, you know, as a child, you're told not to say anything. You're told that no, even, you know, it's very confusing because I would be abused by this man and then somehow in my mind made to feel like he was my favorite teacher, you know. So there's a lot of manipulation that happens psychologically, spiritually, mentally, physically, in order for these things to stay quiet. And a lot of the times the abuse would happen either on school trips with the gifted kids and the talented and gifted program. They would take us on field trips, sometimes after school, sometimes at his house where, you know, my parents were told we were getting piano lessons. So there's a lot going on right underneath people's noses. And one of the main things that I really wanted to get across is the role that these that the standardized testing takes in working as a finder program. That was actually confirmed to me by a man named Nathan Reynolds. He's a defector from one of the bloodline families, the Reynolds family, Reynolds Rap family. He defected and he wrote a book called Snatched from the Flames. And I was put into contact with him through a mutual friend when I told my friend, you know, about my story. And I actually had the opportunity to have a conversation with Nathan, and he confirmed that for me. He apologized to me, actually. He said as a young man, he was being groomed to be an assassin. And he did explain, I asked him about the standardized testing. He said, yes, absolutely. Public school systems are looking for spiritually gifted children specifically to target. And when I put the pieces together that, you know, local schools are an extension of the government. I didn't really think of it that way. But, you know, and when I was younger, I thought I would just lived in this small little town that had its own little public school. but no, it's actually an extension of the US government. And so, you know, they can run those programs through there, and it's definitely a piece of the puzzle that I would like more information or more of a spotlight on.
Absolutely. Well, I think what you're doing, I mean, anyway, is creating such an incredible spotlight as it is. I'm very interested because it's the first time I've heard, yet not surprisingly, that they would have targeted specifically gifted children, and stuff like that, because so many of the survivors I speak to are super intelligent. I mean, really, really bright. And it's amazing, you know, to actually see that. So I'm not surprised they target the gifted class or the gifted section in that. How old were you when this began? Were you at school already? And can you explain to us in as much detail as what you'd like to, what you were subjected to by these people?
Yes. So I have narrowed it down to definitely the age of 5 or 6, although I suspect it may have happened earlier as well. But definitely starting at the age of 5 or 6 when we moved, and I entered that school, that's when my memories definitely began, was around that age, although I may have been targeted earlier, like I said, through certain people that hang out at ski areas and things like that, and live at ski areas and things like that. Sorry, what was so it started around that age. Also, one of the things that started to happen was I would fall ill with these really weird things. And I have since learned that children getting really sick for sort of an inexplicable reason is a symptom of trauma. So I would love to see the files, or, you know, the information released as to exactly which program I was a part of. I have my suspicions, and I have memories working with the military. And those things cross over as far as the experimentation and the rituals. I don't know if, I do believe that sometimes it's just rituals, and I would be used for rituals. I remember being taken to, especially in the field trips, we would be taken to government lands. One of them was a government land, but then we were, you know, our parents were told that it was an outdoor education field trip, but really, you know, it's a government property where a ritual did happen during daylight hours when I was in school. A couple of times I was taken at night, and I remember men in black robes. I remember, you know, being in the center and people in a circle around. I also remember being put in a chair, and electric shock was involved. There was other forms of torture involving especially hot and cold, but specifically also in what seemed to be like a dentist chair. What seems to happen is that I don't understand exactly, but children that have more sort of innate spiritual abilities, when you torture and put a child that is naturally spiritually gifted under tremendous pressure, tremendous stress, I feel like it almost emits something. It emits like a pulse of energy, or maybe that's what's released in the blood that for some reason is what they're looking at, that what they're going after. So I remember being put under intense pain.
It seems, sorry, just as you're saying, it's almost like the normal adreno, call it that, is not enough. It's almost like from the especially spiritually gifted, it's almost like adreno on steroids, if that makes sense. Would you agree with that? That's the sense I get from that.
I do. And I think that's why maybe there's a certain type of pulsation of energy that they're looking for the different programs. During one of the field trips, we were taken to a tunnel. Why are you taking children to a tunnel? It was a brand new tunnel built along I-70. And I remember the group of us going, and they took us into this room, and then the room opened up and there was like a big command control center. I know that also I was taken to other locations. I do believe there's some sort of transportation system where, you can be in one place and then easily transported to another place. There's a lot of military presence in the state of Colorado. The town that I grew up in, also, there is a high altitude military training airport where the 10th Mountain Division trains. So I don't know if there are even facilities that are rooms that are locked off from the public, the general public, that we were taken to as well. I know I'm kind of spouting off a lot of different memories, kind of trying to putting all the pieces together, but I don't want to speak too much on the exact programs that I believe I was involved with, but they were involving they involved multiple children. The only thing that I can understand is there is some sort of military technology that requires an intuitive or a gifted child to be connected to in order for it to work. So I do remember multiple of us being connected into, it felt like the best way I can explain it is it looked almost like a trampoline. Like there was weird, like trampoline. That's what I remember in my mind. It was like a trampoline and we'd be sort of connected into it. I don't know specifically the name of that program. Also, let's see. I do believe that I was involved in experimentations when I was in college as well, because I attended one of the top 3 aerospace engineering schools in the country. And I started out, studying aerospace engineering and astrophysics. And I spent an entire semester studying black holes. And because of my natural scientific mind, I was able to understand the physics very easily. And so these are a lot of the pieces of the puzzle. But I do know that there's information that I understood from an early age of 8 or 9 years old regarding physics and quantum physics, the mathematics of it, that I don't know how I could have known that at such a young age, but having sort of intricate understanding of, things around energy and how it moves, and the forces of nature and how they move, and certain even mathematical equations that didn't line up with what we were learning in school. So I suspect that a lot of even physics, the true nature of it is distorted. It's distorted. Yeah. There's a big piece of the puzzle missing around, especially around the electromagnetic fields. And my other understanding is that children with spiritual gifts have a unique electromagnetic field. We all have very unique electromagnetic fields, but when you can take, and you know, you'd have to ask them why certain kids are used for certain programs. But what it was being tortured. It was being tortured in different ways, especially they would, you know, induce tremendous pain in my teeth as well. There was a lot of work done, weird work done on my teeth. And so I don't know if that's also part of the trauma. It's part of the trauma if you're, you know, if you're.
But I spoke to someone who told me that with the teeth, they often implant chips in the teeth. And that is programming that they often do with military prisoners. I don't know about military guys, but prisoners where they have their teeth implanted with certain chips. So
that's possible. It's very possible. My entire life, I've had very, very, very bizarre physical things happen to me. The other thing that I have is this weird thing behind my right ear that I've had many doctors look at, and nobody knows what it is. It's not a tumor. It's not the same. There's nothing on the left ear that matches it, but it's like this sort of, it's like a little, it's some weird, it feels like jelly almost, and it has a shape to it. So I don't know if there are certain implants and technology that they inserted into kids like me. But I have had a lot of very bizarre physical symptoms as a result. I've had 3 brain surgeries. I've had 10 surgeries total, and I've had tumors throughout my endocrine system. You know, up until I've had 4 surgeries even since 2017. And there are always these sort of strange physical symptoms that the doctors couldn't quite figure out, but they were all connected with my endocrine system. The tumors in the brain were around my pituitary, which is another indicator that you know, tremendous stress was put on my pineal gland, pituitary gland, all through the endocrine system. And then especially when the memories of all the trauma and especially the military experiments started to come to the surface, I had all of these tumors come to the surface of my skin. And they're starting to recede now, but I've spoken to many other survivors who had that same exact experience, that, you know, when the trauma and the memories really come full force and the pieces of the puzzle start to come together, that those things are sort of come to the surface physically as well. And it's about a 3-year process, and then it stops. And that has been my experience as well. It's been about 3 years, and now the whole thing is calming down. So, you know.
I'm interested to know, you were saying you're involved with military experiments and stuff as a child. Can you tell us more about that? What type of experiments were you as a child involved in the military particularly? And what were they doing? What did you observe what they were doing on other children? And are they programming? I mean, does that include these child soldier type things that we hear about so often? I'd just be interested to know from where you were involved, what it looked like from there.
I suspect child soldiers. For me, the memories that I have, I remember being, and I haven't figured out, hopefully someone out there can help me put the pieces of the puzzle together to the name of the experiments or the name of the programs. I have my suspicion, but one of the ways that I remember being used was almost as, how to explain, I remember there being military generals, and I remember being close by them, but it was the kids with intuitive abilities were used almost as like, it was our job to assess threat, assess weakness, and also to almost work as a translator. So if you think of, across cultures, even across cultures on the earth, there are certain things that we share as humans that indicate someone's intention that you can't hide, And so if these groups were working together, it was almost like trying to assess if someone was a threat or what someone's intentions were, because I have an ability, I was born with an ability to see, not just with my, physical eyes, but to almost be able to perceive energetic patterns around people, and and also almost like a human lie detector, to see if someone is being honest or being dishonest, or if they're coming and it's an actual threat or not an actual threat. That's the best way I can describe it. So being able to perceive, even if someone comes from a different culture, or a different, I'm going to say possibly different race, I don't even know, if their intention, what their intentions were. So yeah, I also remember, I don't know if it's like remote viewing or, but I have a natural ability. I have a natural ability that, I see through my eyes, but then also it's almost like a vision or like a movie will run in my mind's eye at the same time. Sometimes I'll be like pulled to a part of the earth, and it's almost like I'm actually looking or I'm actually seeing that place, but I'm not outside of my body. So any of the sort of psychic experiments, remote viewing, is, I guess, the best way to say it, but it's also a natural ability to be able to, I don't know, see in different realms, see in physical realms, and communicate between those realms. And so that's one of the main things that kids like me were used for.
Do you think, I have no doubt that at birth, all the children, you would have your bloodlines tested. Basically, when every child is born, they would have their blood pricked or whatever, and then they would know what bloodlines, etc. We've understood this, that what happens in the system. So then as they get older, their spiritual gifts get tested. And I know Jessie has spoken a lot about this, where they get taken by these old Catholic Sunday school church ladies to go and play a game. And then they've got to pick an item. And then through the item that they pick, it is then determined in certain ways, what spiritual gifts they had, things like that. So I have no doubt they probably have their ways and means of doing that with children, let's say, like yourself, in your environment as well. Do you think that and this is just a question that's occurred to me while we're talking, because, and in fact, I think I might have mentioned this with Tom Althouse in one of our interviews as well. Although you are so intelligent and so spiritually gifted, and as you say, they've created technology that links to the psychic or intuitive abilities of a child. And I would say especially a child, because a child is so pure and innocent. It's very little still contaminating their energy and their life experiences, right? So do you think they would then take what a child already has and enhance that with their spiritual technology? So in other words, make you even more psychic than what you are, more smart than what you are, more technically adept than what you are. I mean, I'm looking at someone like Elon Musk as well, who we know was in the system and must have already been pretty smart and was chosen for specific reasons. But I mean, you know, he's really been put as this really amazing, super smart, whiz kid kind of guy. So where there is or where there isn't, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, do you think that your natural gifts are enhanced by their artificial intelligence to suit their nefarious purposes?
I think so. And I think one of the ways that they do it is drugs, certain drugs. Yeah. I think there are certain pharmaceuticals that enhance. And so
Yes.
because a big piece of the puzzle is I was drugged a lot as a child, and I had a lot of needles inserted into me. And I have a lot of memories of being, you know, restricted, and all sorts of different needles being injected. And so that may have been, I don't know if they get a child into a state of severe panic and severe terror and then draw blood, and / also, you know, through IV put in certain drugs that actually amplify the gifts as well. You know, I don't know exactly what they are, but yes, I was drugged a lot. And you know, even my nervous system, I have just weird, you know, the weird tumors and growths all through the endocrine system. Yeah, but absolutely, it's probably a combination of those things, pharmaceuticals and technology. The technology that I remember it was being plugged into in a weird way in a chair, in connection with sometimes they would sometimes either just severe pain or sometimes, depending on what it was that they want, they would, you know, do sexual things as well to get some sort of physical reaction. But I do believe that there was some sort of interesting consciousness connected with that technology, or when you connect, you know, usually I remember 3 or 5 kids all being plugged into this thing together, that almost it is a technology that allows sort of collective thoughts to work, or I don't know how it works. I just know that in order for it to work, it needs to be connected with an intuitive, or it needs to be connected with one of these people. So maybe are some of the natural gifts and some of the natural, when they would expand the natural abilities, expand the mind, would they then take some of the thoughts or take some of the ideas to implement into that? I don't know exactly how it all works or why it all works, but yes, absolutely. I do think that those abilities can be heightened. And I think it's natural for your spiritual abilities to be heightened when you're in a state of tremendous terror as well. And that connects directly to how our brains are formed. You know, we have we have the reptilian mind, the fight or flight part of our body that subconsciously works on a certain level, that, you know, if you're under a huge amount of stress, there's massive levels of dopamine that are released in the brain. And every single thing about that moment is recorded and imprinted in the mind. And then it's like a subconscious neural pathway that's formed. And so I wonder if they are through direction. I don't know for sure who it was, but, you know, the quote, the scientists or the people overseeing, a lot of times I remember hypnosis being used, either hypnosis or some sort of weird biofeedback or something, but there's a person sitting there like administering it. So perhaps it's to get an intuitive or a gifted child into a state, and then that forms a certain pattern in the mind. I don't know how it works, but I have memories of extreme pain, extreme stress. They would, you know, the name of the game was to get normal emotions, normal human experiences, and then magnify them for their purposes.
Yeah. Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense what you're saying early on, that there was, you know, when you've had, you know, obviously had people looking at your body and your brain, your endocrine system, stuff like that, that you're saying there's so much pressure or stress on your pineal gland. That would make perfect sense, because from what I can just sense from what you're saying to me is that they would have tried to expand your mind, your abilities, and push these means to the extreme end. So with, as you say, technology, drugs, as well as your natural abilities, and obviously through pain, pushed you to the extreme. Mm-hmm. It's like this whole experimentation of the humans. It's like they're choosing specifically gifted humans, and they are humans who already have, let's say, added something or an extra something, whatever it could be. Each human is different in their gifted form. And then pushing that gift that they already have, rather than the average guy on the street, and pushing that to the extreme to see how far they can expand. Because it seems to me they're experimenting with human energy, and they're using technology to ape human energy. Does that make sense? Because they can't create. The dark forces are not creators, they're mimickers, right? So right. They will try and push the natural God-given energy to such a point, and then create artificial intelligence to mimic that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely does. Trying to, you know, push the limits of anything and everything, and push it to the extreme. You know, for example, when I was at the university and I had an entire semester studying black holes, the way that my mind works, the computer that is my brain, I say, I see patterns quickly. I understand math very easily, high level math and calculus and stuff like that. And for the entire semester, this was back in, you know, 2000, before 1999 or 2000, before black holes were even acknowledged mainstream in the mainstream. We were seeing evidence that they absolutely exist. I mean, they absolutely exist based on the mathematics of of the speed at which other planets and stars were rotating around this massive object. And so a lot of interest was put into the physics of black holes. And so with me, it's almost like they would use my natural ability to see the patterns and understand the mathematics and, you know, put in these altered states or, you know, artificially magnified. I was able to see patterns in the math. I was able to solve the problems. I was able to see certain things and how they work and connect the dots. And, you know, and none of what I saw is how it's explained in the physics class. There was so much more to the puzzle. And I'm the type that I don't go along with, even after, you know, being subjected to certain things. I'm not going to just go along with a certain narrative when I see it's clearly not what they're saying it is. So I've been one to really fight back against a lot of things my entire life. But I can tell you there's a lot more to physics than we are told. And what you can't fully understand the laws, the cosmic laws of this universe without including God.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And everything in the Western academia approach wants to delete God from the equation. And it doesn't work that way. So I suspect that's another way that kids are used, you know, get the really bright ones, have them help you figure out the problem. But
Exactly.
and it's stealing knowledge, stealing life force, stealing even emotions. Emotions have patterns to them. The emotion of anger or rage has a certain pattern, a certain frequency, a certain, you know, and if they can create that in a huge way, that's a big impulse of energy. I don't know how they use those impulses of energy, but when I go back and I remember, I do see they would push to a certain level to where like you're either gonna die or you can't handle it, and you finally get into this state of just like it felt like a massive pulse of energy is released. I don't know if that's the reason that they discovered there are pulses of energy that are emitted in certain states of consciousness. That's just how I remember when I would get pushed to the level where, you know, I couldn't stand the pain anymore. One thing is that's when I would, what I call, jump out of my body. Like I would detach from my physical body because I couldn't stand the pain.
Would that be the disassociation? Yeah.
And then, but I did see when that does happen, when you're under the most intense pain, is when my experience, what I saw, it's either God takes the place in the physical body or an angel will step in. I was always there. There was always this goal when I would come out and be like almost looking down on my body. I would be with a golden light. That's the best way I can explain it. Like a golden light would be there with me.
Wow. That's just incredible. I love that. I've never heard anyone speak about that before in that way, the disassociation, because we can understand why kids that are traumatized disassociate. They have the DID, obviously, and we've been told what that entails, really. But I've never heard someone speak about it in the way that you've just explained it. And that is so beautiful, is that as you were leaving your body, because the pain was just too great, that you were hovering above, looking down on yourself, there was God. There was an angel that stepped in and literally held you and carried you through that time. That is just unbelievably beautiful, really. And that is such a lovely, I don't even know what the word is. I'm sorry. I'm trying to grapple for the true word, but it is, and I've hit a blank here, but it is just so beautiful to know that through our most painful times, we are carried, we are supported, we are embraced by God. And that is just beautiful. I mean, Jesse talks about the story about Jesus in the tunnels, you know, and carried her through the catacombs, and that a lot of the kids that are being rescued right now talking about I think they're the man on fire, or the fiery man, or the fireman, or something. I can't remember exactly what they referred to, but a lot of the kids have experienced, from what I'm hearing, similar stuff as well. That is incredible. I'm so happy that you, at the very least, ANDI had that you, wow, that is such a beautiful gift to know that God was there with you.
Yeah, and I mean, when I tie in the SRA piece of the puzzle, I remember being put in the center of circles, sometimes with other kids. And again, they were trying to get to get into a certain state of consciousness that I don't know if they're trying to attach certain entities in that state of consciousness, or maybe because of certain bloodlines or certain DNA, you're more susceptible. And that's why they target certain kids. But I know that we have free will. And I was never down to partner up with those demons. But also, when I think about the fact that when you put when you put someone under that intense pressure that is connected to God and grace, and then, there's some sort of divine intervention, there's some sort of energy that shows up just because of that as well. If I don't know if they're trying to get angels and demons to show up. I don't fully know, but I do know that in the times of the deepest, darkest despair is when that presence is there. Big time.
Wow.
Big time. Wow. Even through all of all of it, God, Jesus, the creator of this world, and his angels, they have been side by side, step by step, walking with me my entire life. And so any attempts to try to drive me away from that divine grace backfired. It backfires. Wow. And so I don't understand the reasoning. I can't fully understand the reasoning of why, although I do know that I think that these people that are trying to get points by being demonic, you get extra points for torturing an innocent child. So there must be even more of an energetic release that pulsates off of innocence.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's like I know Amanda Bass, who's the SRA expert here in South Africa, talks about the rank. It's like it's not the physical rank. It's like the bloodline rank, and the demonic rank. So the more blood, the more pain, the more torture, the more innocent, the more pure energy you usurp, the higher that you get. As you say, you get points or whatever it is. You get ranked, which is insane. Annie, I know that our time is nearly up, and I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I'm most definitely going to be inviting you back on for just a follow-up and what have you. But I would love to know, just in closing, when did you get out of the system? How did you get out? Was there some beautiful, amazing person that you could speak to, share with, that helped you? What was your story just in terms of getting out?
Well, I've been rebelling against the Western system my entire life with everything that I do, even as far as like I refuse to go into certain jobs and certain things like that, you know. But I can say I was fully, let's say, delivered in a way where I regained all of my freedom thanks to a certain group of therapists and people that helped me. And a couple of therapists basically came to me when I was in my time of the most severe trauma. And I do believe that God placed them there. One of them, her name is ANDI, and really it was, both of them were Christian Black women. I love them so much. They were actually both of my therapists that really helped me see what was going on and heal from trauma. I don't think I fully got released to speak and to not be kind of tortured on a sort of spiritual soul level until I was loved so much by certain angels that God put in my life. And especially the one therapist that really helped me helped me really start to heal from the trauma. She reminds me of the Oracle in the Matrix, actually. She had that present. So I'll just say that it's been a long process of healing, and to be kind of have full reclamation of my sovereignty, and to be able to stand and say, I'm a child of God. Nothing that you try will work here. Why? Because look who's standing behind me. Even, I don't care the darkest darkness. If you are, let's say I surrender and I trust the divine grace that guides me. Go into the darkest corner of the earth and light one candle and the darkness will disperse. And so yeah, I can say it's been a series of angels really that have been put in my path each step of the way. And it's been a slow and steady path to healing. But I hope that answers the question. You know, angels, human angels. That's the answer. Human angels.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much. And as I said, I could definitely have you on for another 2 hours, but I know that, you know, we can do these things in increments. It's never pleasant hearing about these things and what you guys have been through and the extent to which people, the lack of compassion. I mean, wow. If anything, for me, that is what really is apparent in each and every one of these SRA, these trafficking, any form of the abuse, especially with the kids and the animals. I mean, they take great delight in you know, creating pain and suffering. So it's never easy and pleasant to hear stuff like that. But what is really wonderful for me to hear is to hear your story and where you are now and the strength that you clearly have within your spirit, that is you, to be where you are now. So I want to just say to you that I think that is amazing, and congratulations for the path you followed and obviously the work you're doing with so many other overcomers as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. And I would love to just, before we end off, just give our viewers a little bit of a teaser, if you will, from you as to what we're going to be touching on in the future, because it was just so great chatting with you the other day and realizing, as I said, the similarities that we have, you know, when it comes to a love for spiritual practices and things like that. So over to you. I'd just love you to share what's in store for us.
Thank you, Chantelle. One thing I do want to say is I feel kind of bad that I don't know more specific names of the programs and things that I was involved with. I can only remember from the experiencer side of it, but I would love to have those files declassified. I would love for that to happen. So I really pray for that to happen so that the truth can be shown for all to see. And yeah, to answer your question, what I've been doing since a young age, I've just been really obsessed with God and science. And that obsession with God and science led me further and further back in time to where I ended up studying to get essentially a master's degree in the science from ancient India. And a big piece of that puzzle is there's the language of Sanskrit is in and of itself an actual technology. So just like, what quantum physics is the study of something on a very small scale. And when you break apart an atom, they've discovered that there's nothing solid inside. It's actually strings of energy vibrating at different frequencies. So everything that we see in the material world that we live in is a combination of light and sound. So if you think of everything on its most subtle level has a specific pattern of sound and light that correlates to that thing in our world. The word in Sanskrit actually replicates that exact pattern. And
Wow.
there are actual sounds that live in different parts of the body. And a big part of my healing has been utilizing this science in order to reconnect the nervous system through sound, through me singing, through prayer, through sound. And there are the first one that, I'll just give this just a little hint that the sound that is ooh literally lives right here in the heart center. And just making certain sounds can literally help to rewire and heal not only emotional trauma, but physical disease as well. And so it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's really empowering. Yeah.
Absolutely. I fully agree. I'm a great believer in that. And we know that sound, let's not even talk about spiritual sound per se, but we know how many people, I've so often read stories or heard stories where people have had awful accidents and they've healed through music and sound. Mm-hmm. And I play the Tibetan singing bowls, and I have a whole array, and my client will lie on the massage table, and for an hour, I'll place the bowls on the body and around, and I'll just play. People have healed. I cannot tell you how powerful that is, because it's exactly that, sound like that, especially when you're working with vibrations and you're conscious of the vibrations. It unknots, it unplats the blockages, the pain, the disease. Literally, it's like unplaiting knotted hair. So suddenly the energy can flow again and the healing flows. And the body is designed to heal itself. So when you create the right terrain for the body in which to heal, then the body heals. So sound is such a powerful tool. Communication, as you say, your voice, the way that you express, the things you say, the chanting, it is unbelievably powerful. So I'm very, very excited to have you back again in the future, very near future, where we're going to be working with you on Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. And we're going to be talking about some of the amazing healing modalities, including the language of Sanskrit, which is unbelievably beautiful. So and some of the healing modalities that you've used in your journey over the past couple of years. So I'm very excited to be connecting with you on that in the future, I have to say.
I'm very excited about that as well. And that's part of the same technology that I was mentioned. Some of it's a technology of the cosmic laws that God created. Like there's certain patterns that flow with grace. There's certain patterns that equal anger. And a lot of the native people had access to this knowledge, you know, and were able to live in harmony. And I believe, and I hope, and I see us as, you know, as a community, as a world, as a planet, as a humanity, becoming more and more aligned with harmony, being in harmony with God's laws rather than disharmony. And I really do think that the attack against humanity is to disconnect people from God and from grace and to deharmonize. So the more that we can lend our voice to that harmony, it really does create a very massive, powerful, energetic field, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really look forward to that. Yay.
Thank you, Chantelle.
Okay, guys and girls, thank you so much. Andi, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experiences. Really love hearing from you. We're going to have you back very soon. So watch the space, everyone. It's going to be awesome. So thank you so much for watching us. If you haven't already, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. Share. This is the kind of stuff we've simply got to get out of there. As you all know, we were knocked down recently. We were struck down, but we're holding up again. So please, if you don't mind, just share and like, subscribe, comment. It just gets our I was going to say demographic. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. It just gets our algorithm. You see?
Yeah.
Thank you. Gets our algorithms up again. Thank you, guys. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you very, very soon. Thank you so much.